We specialize in finding diverse players who excel at the game. We're in lacrosse because our kids decide they want to play, and we decided that we wanted to make the experience exceptional, not just average. We did all the extra, if you would, to make it work. Living outside of a hotbed area, how in the world do you do it when you don't live right in Baltimore, you don't live in New England or New York or PA? It's very different trying to raise a high-level player when you don't have access to all this stuff.
Welcome to the Fred Opie Show, where we share life lessons through lacrosse journeys. I'm your host, Fred Opie, a former Syracuse University and U.S. national team lacrosse player. Today on the Fred Opie Show, Troy Kemp, Nation United Director of Recruiting and Head Coach. He played collegiate lacrosse and football at Colgate University. He is a husband and father of 2 daughters and a son. His son TJ Kemp played lacrosse at UNC Chapel Hill, and he plays professionally for the MLL's Florida launch. Father Troy Kemp is the founder and director of the National Center for the Development of Boys. I asked him about Nation United's mission, players, parents, and about his favorite books for developing a healthy view on life and the challenges that happen along your journey. That's today on the Fred Opie Show. Troy Kemp.
Nation United is an organization that was created to utilize elite level lacrosse to inspire diversity, to help make the exception become the rule, change the optic of what it looks like to be a lacrosse player in America.
Did you grow up playing lacrosse?
I did not. I actually grew up playing everything other than lacrosse, and I was a Long Island kid. We didn't have the game out on the East End, but I grew up playing football, and I was introduced to lacrosse at Colgate University, where I had a few friends of mine that played football and lacrosse. Canadian gave me my first stick my freshman year, that even though this sport was a hotbed sport in certain areas, that it was definitely exclusive to certain communities. I went to Riverhead High School, and they have lacrosse today, but they didn't have it yesterday. Suffolk County. I think lacrosse made it out to Shoreham Wading River. When the money ran out, the sport ran out, I guess.
Nations United is a way of changing the field of lacrosse in terms of diversity. How about for the individual player and his family? Is it a good ROI as compared to other club teams out there?
Nation United is more of an experience than it is a team. I think a lot of times when kids are joining club teams, their end game is, do I get exposure to college coaches? Do I get great coaching to help me develop as a player? Some club teams really more focus on the competitive side and are trying to field a team of high-level players such that they can just win, and that's sort of end game, and their kids get recruited to certain schools. But Nation United, we do everything from some parent education. I represent the National Center for the Development of Boys, and so we talk about what boys need as much as, the game. Playing the game is more than the game to a lot of these guys. It's a crew with the cause.
Say that again. I like that.
Crew with the cause. Lacrosse is more than a game to these guys. It's an outlet. It's a vehicle for guys to change not only their trajectory in terms of where they could potentially be educated beyond high school, but it's also a family. One of the things that we say with the National Center for the Development of Boys is that all boys need a crew and a cause. They need a purpose. They need a role. And a lot of young men are trying to find roles in dangerous ways in society. And so this opportunity, or lacrosse offers an opportunity for these guys to be a part of something larger than themselves that has a purpose. And the interesting thing is when guys become a part of our program, they're ambassadors, not players. That's why we say it that way, because they're also part of the story in terms of changing the optic of lacrosse and what is expected, and the widening the margins in terms of what people see as an elite level player and not just an athlete running around on the field. And I think that that's something that when they talk about ROI, it's sort of an interesting term in itself, because there are investors in this country that will invest in an organization because they get a return on investment in terms of their wallet. They make a profit. But then there's other organizations that are nonprofits that people give to, that they're not trying to receive something directly back in their pocket. What they're trying to do is trying to move the needle for someone else. And I think one of the greatest parts about Nation United is the ROI is not seen in the same way as most travel teams. What am I getting for it? But what am I doing for someone else by playing on this team? Two things that are happening at the same time. Yes, there are getting high-level coaches. They are working with a diverse coaching staff, the most diverse coaching staff that they've probably ever been a part of. But their parents are being educated as to what boys need beyond this tournament or beyond getting into college. How do you thrive in college? We don't approach it in terms of wins and losses. We approach it in terms of wins and losses in terms of life. How does this thing keep moving forward?
When I hear you unpack what you all are all about, there's two books that came to mind. First one is called How to Raise a Modern Day Knight. Second book is Joe Ehrmann's Inside Out Coaching. Are you familiar with either of these two books?
Joe Ehrmann's book, I am. But now I will be familiar with the other by the time we talk.
Talking about this in class, I'm teaching a course on African history and food. And we were talking about the Akan people in Ghana. And I asked the students, do you know what a rite of passage is? And have you been through one? It takes me back to this concept. This man has created this book as a way of creating a rite of passage, that he said that every boy needs a rite of passage so that they can walk through the steps. They can clearly define what is a man, what does a man look like, what is a man's expectations, and then celebrating that part of their life when they get to certain ages, similar to a bar mitzvah or first communion, etc. Taking the young man, surrounding him with good examples of men, and walking them as a group of men with their sons through that process till they get to the rite of passage, and then actually having a celebration when they actually become knighted as young men.
Wow. That's an interesting thing, because if you think about the number of young men who are fatherless in this country and so forth, where does that come into play? We talk about what the role of coaches today, how it's changed given the dynamics when it comes to families and so forth. Even the families that have two parents, there are two parents that are both working, so they have less time to do some of the things that used to be done years ago. So now this coach has a tremendous opportunity not only to help them develop a certain set of skills, but more importantly, establish a mindset in terms of where do they need to be, how do you gauge where you are, how do you fit, and what are you doing for others. I do believe that there's a huge responsibility for coaches. If you decide to take the wheel, then you need to take the wheel and grab it with both hands and understand what your real mission is beyond trying to advance through the tournament.
I was watching 30 for 30 called Last Stop University about the junior college in Mississippi. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Thought about what you just said about what a coach is. This is a rant. I'm going to warn people right now. I'm going to put it out there. This head coach with these kids who come from all kinds of dysfunctional behavior. If you don't think you came from a dysfunctional family, then you just don't know what a family is, because we all have dysfunction in our family. Let's just put it out there. So none of us are perfect. Coaches have more influence over their players than their teachers often and their parents. Are transactional coaches and there's transformational coach. Cussing at these kids, would I allow someone to have that kind of influence over my child? Absolutely not. There's a scene in the 30 for 30 with sneaking girls into the dorms, girls they have no relationship with, sleeping with the girls and then trying to sneak them out. And they get busted. So the scene is when they get busted. Head coach, folks, tells them if you get caught, you will get fined by the school for $300 and you will not get your transcripts, anything you need to transfer if you have that still in your record. You could, guys, go up the street to such and such motel, pay $45 and accomplish the same thing without a problem. And I'm going, oh my God, this is the head coach instructing these young men that that's the definition of being a man. Joe Ehrmann talks about it's from the ballpark to the billfold to the, and I'm just going, this is exactly what Joe is talking about. We need coaches, as you just said, Troy, who will teach these young men what it means to be a man. And it's not being a predator towards women.
Right, and that's the thing. I feel like a great coach has to love kids as much as they love the game. These folks don't know what I'm made of. Some of them don't. And more importantly, we're trying to use what you have and incorporate it into our recipe as opposed to sand it down and trim it off to make you fit into this mold over here that we call a successful lacrosse team. And so the parents are really appreciative, because the other thing is the synergy they have. Because there's a lot of questions that parents often come in with and the little things that they're apprehensive about when their child first steps onto a new team and on a new field, that they didn't have those questions anymore. Because a lot of them are already answered by looking around and seeing who's out there. It's the difference between running like that when they play for us. And more importantly, the parents are looking around with each other. They bond right away because there's just some things that have already been taken care of before they show up.
So how would someone find Nations United? Where you're located, how would someone get plugged in? They hear the podcast, they hear your message, and they said, that's for me. How would they find you?
The best way is they go to our website, nationunitedlc.com. That will be on our, and they can apply and they can find out more about our program. The 5 board members are in 5 different states, so we don't actually have a home state. Someone always asks, where's your team from? Where our kids are ambassadors from 20 different states. That's the beauty of it is, here's a team that can come from 20 different states, spend about 3 hours together and emerge as champions in tournaments, more than the scoreboard, but off the field as well, the bonding that takes place. So social media is a great way to kind of stay up to date with what we're doing and some of the things that are going on and trending. But our website, nationunitedlc.com, is the best way.
And so a young man or his parents see you all as a tournament, and that's usually how they find out about you?
And we seek out players as well. I mean, we'll see, the kids are always sharing highlight videos, and the kids know other kids. So, word of mouth is a big way that we find out. But I think having the kind of visibility, obviously having success, that's one thing that we realize that, you have to validate yourself just like these kids have to validate themselves on the field. So if your program, takes down a giant or two, all of a sudden that's the shot heard around the world, and news travels pretty fast. If you do something really well, the word travels a lot faster. So we're easier to find today.
Who can play for your team? Parents may say, well, I want my kid to play, but my kid's lily white.
Well, that's the beauty of Nation United is that we don't discriminate, right? I mean, we have kids that are every ethnic group. Just about. We haven't had anyone Native American yet, but we've had just about everything else, which is kind of neat. But we want our team to be at least, ideally half of our kids to be of what they would be minority backgrounds in lacrosse. And then the other half can be pretty much anything else. But it tends to be about 80% what we call black and brown players. Sometimes people exclude themselves and say, well, I'm white. I don't fit that team. That's not true. We don't care. That's the good thing. Those guys they loved it just as much as the kids, African-American kids. I think that's something that parents automatically assume because the majority of the kids are African-American. We're not going to apologize for having a team that's we're intentionally being diverse because the game is not intentionally diverse. And so we have to do something differently. We specialize in finding diverse players who excel at the game. We're in lacrosse because our kids decide they want to play. And we decided that we wanted to make the experience exceptional, not just average. We did all the extra, if you would, to make it work. Living outside of a hotbed area, how in the world do you do it when you don't live right in Baltimore? You don't live in New England or New York or PA. It's very different trying to raise a high-level player when you don't have access to all this stuff.
The show will be right back. For related content on negotiating the world of school and sports, visit our website at fredopie.com. Check out our podcast archive and review the show on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes. The best way to support the podcast is to tell a friend, share the show on Facebook and Twitter, or send them to our website at fredopie.com.
Start with your gift. Understand and monetize it while serving others with it. This book is written for the younger version of me. In Start With Your Gift, I help you recognize your gift, select mentors, choose the right school and training, consider childhood wounds in need of healing, identify internships, show you how to select jobs, get your financial house in order, live and give like no one else.
And it's available on Amazon.com as an ebook or paperback.
We have a special offer for those of you who buy the book this month. My Super 7 Guide to Time Management, Public Speaking, and Writing, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Christian Student Athletes, Black Child in Suburbia, Life and Lacrosse in Westchester County. I have the Power Principles for Thriving in School. Cool. How do you define cool? What does it take to be a champion? A 2-part series. These are 6 messages that are exclusive offers for those who buy the book this month. Email us proof of purchase of the book. You can send me a photo of your receipt, or you can cut and paste the receipt into an email, and we will send you an MP3 version of these 6 exclusive messages for free. Download them onto your smartphone and make them part of your automobile, gym, or running university library. You can't beat this offer with a baseball bat. I welcome the opportunity to come and discuss the book with your team, school, and/or organization.
Now back to the show. What's something you thought about coaching a club team in general that later you realized you had totally wrong?
I kind of underestimated how quickly they would bond. Different expectations when you have a club of people who play for different high school coaches. And the skills may look the same, but the knowledge of how the game works is very different. That was probably a little bit of a shocker. The best part about coaching Nation United guys is that they have so much to offer that we don't overcoach the guys. Don't overcoach them and you'll be just fine. Because I see a lot of college coaches overcoaching kids. A lot of club coaches overcoaching kids. And I think that takes away their identity within the game. And that's why these kids love playing for us, because they feel free. We call it the wiggle. We like players who wiggle a little bit. They can play on the script or off the script.
Recently heard an analyst talking about a defensive coordinator. Comment was made is that the secondary is struggling because they're trying to do too much. Instead of putting in 2 defensive schemes and make sure the players know them back and forth, they can do them and can rotate them and can check off when they need to, rather than trying to throw 7 at the secondary and then they're having all kinds of confusion. And I think that is often a problem. Often people will come to me and say, I'm a new coach, can you tell me a couple offenses to put in? I don't put in offenses. I teach the players how to space. My philosophy is more of the triangle offense that the Chicago Bulls used to run during Michael's day. Understand spacing. And when I talked to Coach Mike Massera at West Tennessee, he said the same thing. He's more thinking about spacing, so the players understand that more so than some complicated 4 or 5 different plays.
Exactly. I've just seen way too much of it. And the other thing is this. I've seen players develop the ability to play with both hands very well, and then coaches limit them and try to push them to one side or the other. So there's some things you can't coach and some things you can. And I equate it to sharks and dolphins. I said, you look at a shark and dolphin from far away, and they kind of look the same, but they have 2 different mission statements. Because when you're out there, you're on a mission. And when you play, sometimes these kids come from programs where they don't have 24 guys on the roster who can play at the Division I, Division II, or Division III level. There might be 2 of them. And so they have to learn how to do more. And so sometimes they go to college. The whole goal is to get them to do less. Stop doing all those things that got you here. And that's a very hard lesson to unteach, teaching a shark to be a dolphin, if you would. You got to learn how to incorporate that thing that you do, that S on your chest that shows up every now and then. Being able to initiate. When we look for players for Nation United, if I'm looking for a midfielder, I want a guy that can create separation, because that's going to move the defense. If you can move the defense, you can move the ball, and there'll be a soft spot on the backside all the time, not some of the time, all the time. And sometimes those kids are good enough where if somebody doesn't slide with authority, we tell our guys, keep moving. And it's not always to move the ball, because when you say the word always, you're going to get yourself in trouble. You can say a majority of the time, but when I have coaches that say always, regardless of the circumstances, that's like telling a punt returner he always has to step with his right foot first when he catches the ball. If the lane is on the left because somebody screwed up, take it.
The Syracuse teams I played for in 84 and 85, both those teams went to the national championship, all right? If I look at those teams, I'd say there were probably 5, maybe 6 great players on that team, and what the rest of us do, including me, we carried the luggage. That was it. And if you look at most high school teams, there's probably, depending on where you are, you probably got 2, maybe 3 or 4 if you're in an exceptional program, and then everybody else is carrying the luggage. Be glad you can carry the luggage. Be glad that you can pack the clothes if you're that good. The opportunity for the kids to come together and play with that many terrific players is a great opportunity. Some of them don't understand that beating a double or a triple is not a good thing. Drawing the double and drawing the triple and getting rid of the ball. Hopefully just drawing the double. If you're drawing the triple, you already didn't pass the ball fast enough.
Share with the guys right away when they show up is that, you have other guys on this team you can trust.
Yeah.
Like you have other guys that can do what you can do, so you don't have to do it all. I mean, if a kid's kind of born and raised on that, he's carried the ball like a tailback. I get 40 carries a game, that kind of thing. Well, now they're playing with guys who, if they move it twice, it's already, it's a slam dunk. Versus I got to go through the entire team and put the ball in the net. And again, that's something that's kind of, a coach will say, well, that guy's got no lacrosse IQ. That's not really true. He knows what to do. But when you have a boy, and this is something about understanding boys, when they have success at something, it's really hard to tell them not to do it again. You can tell them, but they don't believe it. In his eyes, the highlight reel of 17-yard snipe in the corner was just worth it, right? How do you tell a kid, don't do that? So I had a rule. I said, son, shoot the ball wherever you want to. But if this goalie saves it or you miss the cage, now you have to shoot it from where I told you to shoot it. Yeah. And I wanted it inside a certain radius. They're never going to let me get that close because they double team me when I get off the bus. I said, that's a good point. I said, but I'm just telling you, do that. So guess what he does? He goes out and he shoots the ball from 12 to 15. He scores 4 or 5 goals, and then he pulls the trigger from 17. But he did what I asked him to do, but it was on his terms. But basically I set it up in such a way where he can have success. He can get what he wants, but also he does what I need him to do. I call that the Tai Chi approach versus Kung Fu. Kung Fu is my way, the highway. Tai Chi is, a brick thrown at a blanket. You got to be the blanket.
I love it.
That's crucial.
What kind of mentoring do you continue with them after they go off to play in college?
We had a panel discussion where guys were former college players and pro players were able to sit and have the kids ask different questions about their college experience, but also, expectations and so forth, and what they needed to do to prepare really for the move from high school to college. Several pros have agreed to be accessible to our guys. Christmas, Kyle Harrison, Chaz, and others have agreed to make sure that they are mentoring these guys all the way through. And more importantly, that these guys are now turning around and mentoring the kids behind them. And I think that that's the part, the crew and cause part that we talk about is so crucial, to be a part of something that's bigger than you, which means that expectation is a cultural expectation versus just an individual one. And more importantly, when you have another player who's looking to you for advice, you tend to do things the right way. So, guys in general don't like to communicate, especially when they're stressed about things. But I think being able to open these lines of communication when there's no stress is crucial, because then they know the channel is there. And that's the difference between going to college and thriving in college.
Describe what you considered your required college course. And in this course, that syllabus should be filled with this content so you have this knowledge base before you graduate from this school.
I'm more of a mindset than a skill set guy. Skill set has a shelf life, but your mindset lasts your entire life. I always think about the things that influence your mindset, like problem solving. I took a course called Race and Education at Colgate. And I was a mathematics major, but I took a course, Race and Education. One of the things that it allowed us to do is examine the inequalities and injustices that are going on in America when it comes to education. It said, okay, so if you were in charge, what would you do differently? And it allowed us to take out the purple crayon and use creativity to try to solve the problem. That's something that most kids, when they go to college, they just a spoon-fed information. They write 2 or 3 papers, but how much are they really doing that are trying to impact others while they're there? I think kids need to get, probably in a perfect world, off the campus and into different communities that don't look anything like the school setting that they're in, and to understand the people who were there. So my race and education course impacted my life probably more than anything I took. I think the other would be, I think that being involved in things that involve more creativity and being around creatives.
A book or two that you found riveting?
The Power of Habit. I love that book because it really talks about how to get things done when you're not necessarily motivated to do so. Great by Choice was a book that I read that kind of got me reading even more because, that's Jim Collins' book that, talks about how to be, organizations that were great regardless of circumstances, because when the market crashed, there are some businesses that are no longer around. I read quite a bit of Malcolm Gladwell. I mean, you named the book, I read it. So The Outliers, I've actually given away probably 12 copies of that book. I just keep extras on my shelf, so when young men come in, I want them to start with that book. Look at what talent, effort, and opportunity with that equation, and where are you, and how do you have all three if you want to be an outlier. Daniel Coyle, The Talent Code, that was another one that I read. The ability to grow talent. It was important because I actually gave that one to my son because he is a kid that was incredibly talented. And how do you motivate someone who has a tremendous amount of talent? Here's a guy who's got it all from a talent standpoint, but I need him to try harder at certain things. So I give him the book. He reads it a year later, right? He read it a year later. But then all of a sudden, all the kids that he coaches and he mentors, he says, I'm not coaching you until you read a certain amount of this book.
Wow.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I tell people all the time is that, for young men, oftentimes, if it's not their idea, it's a bad idea. Give them about 24 hours for it to become their idea. Here's a book that I gave him, and he talks about it so much because he realizes that, look, perfect practice does make perfect. And so there's a science behind why that works. And now that was proven to him, and he's like, wow, you mean to tell me that you can be better at so many things just by putting in the work? Because that's what I wanted him to do, is really look at the work side of it and the process and quit worrying about the outcome. Dr. Michael Gurian's written a book called Saving Our Sons. It's soup to nuts what's going on with boys today in America. Some of the things from a biological side and from a cultural side and so forth. That's as comprehensive a book as I've ever seen. The number one book, especially, if you have a son who's playing this game, while he's becoming a man, I think every parent should probably read that book. What do boys need? What does it say in terms of their brain development? How does a parent connect with a young man and have success? How do you utilize that tool, that lacrosse piece, to your advantage if they're in the sport in general? How can you partner effectively with coaches? And even how do coaches, do they need to understand how boys are wired to better reach them in terms of their, how they function?
Dinner with three people, dead or alive. Who would they be and why?
I'd have to start off with Barack Obama. Here's a person that changed America in so many ways, and the optic and the mindset. I mean, I was supposed to be the first black president of the United States, by the way, and I didn't make it. So I knew I was going to come in second at best if I ever wanted to do it.
It sounds like you've recovered, though, from the trauma of not making it.
Yeah. Changed the game for a lot of Americans. He gave people hope who didn't have hope. But Nation United does that for some kids on the lacrosse level. And then his way of approaching things in terms of how he got elected, he leveraged the social media and so forth like no one has ever done. Oprah Winfrey would be the second one. Again, she's a pioneer in what she did and the things that she went through, but more importantly, what she's done for other people. Because you sit with her, she connects you with, you look at the 6 degrees of separation. Well, she's probably 2 degrees from anybody you need to know. Answering the questions that she might ask will help you grow, because everybody learns from the questions that they're asked. She's a fascinating human being. And then the third one would be my grandmother, because my grandmother, she passed away when I was 12 years old, actually 13. And my grandmother was old school. The expectations for the Kemps was very different when she was alive. We grew up as migrant workers. There were some who kind of made it to college, but then they cycled back and ended up in the migrant working, and just, some hard times in a lot of ways. And I don't even know what her expectations were for her kids, for her grandkids. She was 54 years old when she passed away. So she didn't even really know me. And I knew her just based on my mom would have a kid, and she'd come and stay with us for a bit, and then she had a bunch of rules. But I never got to have a conversation with her ever. She grew up in Florida, in sort of north central Florida there. It was a mindset from back in the day kind of thing. And so it was almost like Sugarcane Alley kind of stuff. be seen but don't be heard, that kind of thing. I mean, that's where we were. I mean, she was there to help my mom through a lot of stuff and talk with her just so she can see. She's got some grandchildren who really are doing some things that she would be proud of, but more importantly, doing some things for some other folks, and that we've changed the game. Like there are a number of us who've broken out of the kind of the cycle. Not to say that we're any better than anybody who came prior to us, but we're doing it differently and having success. I'd love for her to be proud of us in a different way.
You find out that you have a terminal blood disease and you have 3 months to live, and you're going to create a YouTube video for the program you've been coaching, and you're going to tell them, these are the 3 truths, guys, I want you to live by, so that you can live a prosperous and impactful life, so that you can be the best ambassadors possible. What 3 truths would you share?
Wow. 3 truths that I would share for them to be the best. 3 truths. Man, you hit me with that one. Okay, for a man, a lot of words, I have a lot of words. One would be they should always seek an opportunity to be responsible for someone other than themselves. Definition of a man is not just the ability to take care of yourself, but to take care of someone else as well. To look to help at least one person. 2, being consistent is often more important than being talented. Is to say that you need to be consistent at what you do so people will know what to expect of you. 3, that your skill set has a shelf life, but your mindset lasts your entire life. And it's so important to establish a growth mindset, because there's always something that you can control within the frame of whatever you're doing. And if you put your attention on the things that you can move through your effort, then you're always going to be fine. People tend to weigh the outcomes and not really look at the process. And that's where they often get lost, because they can lose hope pretty quickly when they just look at the outcomes as opposed to what can I do differently to change things.
Troy, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your wisdom, your passion to see young men grow up to be impactful men. It's inspiring just to hear what you all are doing, and I'm trying to think of an excuse to get out there and be around you all and see what you're doing. And I like to tell people I enjoy sharing my stupid tax so they don't have to pay the same tax.
Right. When I got involved, I knew it was going to be special, but when you feel it, someone can tell you how cold or how warm it is outside, but you got to go outside to really feel it and experience it. The thing that I love the most about Nation United is that they love this game, but they're growing while they're playing. They're learning so much. Even the best kids are getting better as a part of being a part of the team. But more importantly, we're telling them that extra that sometimes people marginalize them for having or try to work their way around, we're utilizing that. We're trying to take advantage of the fact that they can function on script and off script, and we're trying to incorporate it into what we do, which means that they already have a role as soon as they show up.
That's a wrap for this show. Thanks for listening. To hear more content like it, go to fredob.com. This show could have been brought to you by your company. If you have questions about advertising and sponsoring this show, contact us at fdopie@gmail.com. That's fdopie@gmail.com. Over the winter school break, we will be offering our first online career college wisdom course. I'm excited about this. I've been a college professor for 17 years, and I've been teaching online courses for the last 5 years. I know what I'm doing. I will be teaching this course. It's a 5-day, 2-hour each day mini winter online course. Don't know what you want to do after you graduate? Take the course. Hate school? Take the course. Feel unfulfilled on your job or in school? Take the course. Don't know how to choose a major? You've been offered a scholarship or admissions, early admissions at a school, and you are clueless about what you're going to major in? Take the course. This is a course to help you make an impact on and off the field and help you find a vocation. That is a job that feels like a vacation. It's the course that I wish I had taken when I was younger. I share some of the biggest school and career mistakes that people make so that you don't have to make them. This is what we will be covering in the course, which is based on my new book, Start With Your Gift. We'll teach you how to recognize your gift, identify mentors, understand college career myths, choose your right major, degree, and or certificate program. We'll help you identify what you need to do and what you need to avoid. We'll help you select a job, pivot from one job to a new one, start a business. Get you financially in shape, and we will teach you how to play, work, live, and give like no one else. It's a winter session online. You'll be in the comfort of your own home. You'll be online with other students and with me live in our mini winter course. Registration will open online on my website, fredopie.com, and registration will be open on November 23rd, 2017. You'll be hearing about those offers in days to come. So who should take the course? Students from ages 15 and older. Our winter sessions will start December 11th through the 15th. Morning session will run from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Evening session that will go from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Winter session 2 will go from December 18th to the 22nd. Morning session will run from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Evening session that will go from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And our last winter session will have January 8th through the 12th. Morning session will run from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Evening session that will go from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. FDOPIE@gmail.com to ask for additional information